You know that suffocating, dreadful silence when his texts suddenly go cold, and you are left staring at a blank screen, wondering precisely where you went wrong. Your frantic, immediate instinct is to fix it, to send that carefully drafted emotional paragraph, to orchestrate a casual run-in, or to try entirely too hard to remind him of your worth. But what if I told you that this exhausting effort is the exact reason he is slipping through your fingers? The brutal, utterly counterintuitive truth of masculine psychology is this: the only genuine way to make a man truly hear you is to stop speaking completely. Welcome to Destiny's Decree. Today, I am going to hand you the ultimate romantic paradox. In the next few minutes, you will discover exactly how to drive his mind absolutely insane, making him terrified of losing you, without you having to lift a single manicured finger. Pour yourself a glass of wine, settle in, and pay very close attention, because your era of anxious waiting ends right now. You have been fed a beautifully packaged, albeit utterly exhausting lie by modern romance. You believe that to secure his devotion, you must orchestrate the perfect evening, dress like a runway model, or master the culinary arts. This desperate overcompensation does not breed desire, it suffocates it entirely. By trying so incredibly hard to become his ultimate source of entertainment, you unwittingly transform yourself from an alluring enigma into an anxious pleaser. When you expend an absurd amount of emotional currency trying to satisfy his every unuttered whim, the masculine mind registers something quite counterintuitive. He does not think, "How wonderful, she cares." Rather, his hunter's instinct simply goes to sleep because the prize has walked into the cage and locked the door herself. True romantic polarity requires a delicate vacuum, a space where his curiosity can breathe, which is completely destroyed the moment you choose to become his full-time event organizer. Let us look at a practical scenario. When he behaves slightly distant on a Tuesday evening, your immediate instinct might be to overcompensate by cooking his favorite meal or offering an enthusiastic massage. I implore you to drop the wooden spoon, step away from the oven, and pour yourself a chilled glass of wine whilst enjoying a brilliant book. Let him marvel at the chilling reality that his temporary withdrawal did not trigger a desperate performance, but rather left you utterly, beautifully unbothered. Obsession is never cultivated through what you actively do for a man, but through what he is forced to imagine when you are doing absolutely nothing for him. The harder you try to display your worth, the more you inadvertently signal that you do not believe you possess it inherently. It is a rather undignified dance that shifts the power balance completely, making him the absolute judge of your value, while you anxiously await his verdict like a schoolchild. To truly captivate his subconscious without lifting a single finger, you must learn to step back and let the silence do the heavy psychological lifting for you. You must transition from the comforting, predictable safety of a daily routine into something far more intoxicatingly elusive. Because the moment a man believes he can accurately forecast your next move, the exquisite thrill of the chase dissolves into a deeply mundane certainty. Men, despite their occasional grumbling about drama, are fundamentally addicted to the intoxicating rush of the unpredictable. If he can mentally map out your entire itinerary, knowing precisely where you are and exactly how quickly he will reply to his mundane afternoon text, the spark of obsession simply dies of sheer boredom. The male mind operates much like a taut rubber band. It desperately requires space, tension, and the subtle threat of a snap to maintain its strength. Predictability is the blunt pair of scissors that cuts that tension, leaving the relationship limp, safe, and entirely uninspiring. You see, routine is the absolute graveyard of romantic desire. When you become just another perfectly reliable fixture in his day, like his morning coffee or the alarm clock he lazily hits snooze on, you forfeit your status as a captivating enigma. He stops wondering about you for the rather tragic reason that there is absolutely nothing left to wonder about. You have essentially handed him the completed script of your life, complete with stage directions, completely stripping away his primal need to decipher and conquer the puzzle of your affection. Let us look at a practical application. It is a Friday evening, and instead of being readily available for his standard, low-effort, last-minute invitation, you are entirely unreachable. Rather than anxiously glaring at your phone, you are perhaps attending a late gallery showing, or simply enjoying a gloriously uninterrupted bath with your mobile firmly set to Do Not Disturb. When you casually mention the next day that you were delightfully occupied, you introduce a terrifying, magnificent variable into his previously ordered universe. To become an unattainable puzzle, you do not need to construct elaborate lies or manufacture childish mysteries. You merely need to reclaim the absolute sovereignty of your own time. You must train his subconscious to understand that your immediate attention is a rare privilege, not a basic standard-issue subscription he secured after your first date. A woman who occasionally disrupts the expected rhythm, who goes comfortably quiet without malice, who has wonderful plans she does not feel compelled to fully explain, forces a man to stay remarkably alert. This beautiful unpredictability, however, must never stem from a petty desire to play manipulative games. It must be the natural, effortless byproduct of a life that is genuinely overflowing with its own vibrant energy. If you are merely pretending to be busy, whilst secretly praying for his name to illuminate your screen, the facade will eventually crumble under the weight of your own anxiety. True magnetic pull occurs only when your focus shifts entirely from managing his perception to cultivating a profound, self-sustaining reality of your own. The absolute zenith of masculine attraction is not a flawless face or a meticulously curated wardrobe. It is the blinding, almost terrifying radiance of a woman whose happiness is entirely self-sustaining. We are culturally conditioned to believe that men secretly desire a damsel in distress, someone they can swoop in and rescue from the tragic monotony of her own existence. In brutal reality, absolutely nothing short-circuits the male ego, quite like the stark realization that you are genuinely thriving, laughing, and prospering in his total absence. It forces him to recognize that his presence in your vibrant world is merely a luxury, never a fundamental necessity. When a man realizes that your joy does not desperately hinge upon his daily validation, his inherent psychological wiring is thrown into a state of profound confusion and immediate intrigue. He is historically accustomed to being the sun around which a woman's emotional solar system revolves, easily dictating her moods with a simple text or a subtle, punishing withdrawal. By gracefully stripping him of this unearned power and placing the crown firmly upon your own head, you challenge his ego in the most deliciously sophisticated manner. He suddenly finds himself rather desperate to be a part of the intoxicating reality you have built without him. Consider the practical application of this sovereignty. When he carelessly cancels a weekend plan at the 11th hour, the typical reaction is a display of noticeable disappointment or quiet, simmering resentment. I want you to instead respond with a genuinely breezy, "No worries at all, enjoy your day," and immediately pivot to booking a brilliant Pilates class or securing a table at a chic new cocktail bar with your dearest friends. When he later witnesses the undeniable evidence of your absolute, unbothered delight, the sharp sting of your independence will hit him far harder than any angry paragraph you could have possibly sent. Living this sovereign life means your emotional baseline is fortified by your own passions, your intellect, and your fiercely guarded peace, rather than the fickle, fluctuating attention of a romantic partner. You must genuinely relish your own magnificent company, finding as much deep satisfaction in your solo endeavors as you would in an extravagant candlelit dinner. This is the ultimate, undeniable trigger for his obsession. He is no longer dating a woman he has to constantly manage or pacify, but rather a queen whose kingdom is already flourishing. He must now urgently prove himself worthy of even crossing the drawbridge. Yet an incredibly fascinating psychological phenomenon occurs when a woman naturally embodies this level of unshakable self-directed sovereignty. Without ever uttering a single jealous word, batting her eyelashes at another man, or engaging in exhausting, toxic mind games, she completely alters the romantic atmosphere around her. The sheer fact that her life is so incredibly rich and emotionally full silently communicates a rather terrifying truth to his subconscious, effortlessly igniting an invisible, desperate panic about what might happen if he lets her slip away. There is a rather crude, widespread misconception that to make a man fiercely competitive, you must parade other suitors in front of him like cheap prizes at a vulgar fun fair. You absolutely do not need to flirt with the local barista or deliberately orchestrate toxic, exhausting jealousy traps to trigger his primal fear of loss. The most potent form of competition is entirely invisible. It is the quiet, unspoken reality that a woman of your caliber naturally has endless options simply by existing. You activate this phantom competition not by looking at other men, but by making it implicitly, terrifyingly clear that you are perfectly capable of walking away from him. This is an aura, a silent, devastating energy that surrounds a woman who knows her absolute, undeniable worth. When a man senses that your boundaries are forged from iron and your tolerance for mediocrity is absolute zero, his subconscious immediately registers danger. He realizes with a sudden and chilling clarity that the velvet rope to your life can be unclipped at a moment's notice if his effort begins to wane. He does not need to see another man texting you at midnight. He merely needs to feel the elegant, icy breeze of your willingness to depart without a single backward glance. Let us examine a practical scenario. Rather than strategically leaving a phantom text notification illuminating your screen to spark a childish argument, simply be willing to politely decline his company when his approach is lazy. If he suggests a drab last-minute drink of his local pub on a Friday night, you do not need to mention another date. You simply say with a warm, unapologetic smile, "That does not quite work for me, but do have a lovely evening." The sheer, polite finality of your rejection creates a haunting void in his mind, forcing his own imagination to wildly construct scenarios of who else might be occupying your valuable time. By flatly refusing to participate in obvious, theatrical jealousy games, you position yourself completely outside his usual framework of predictable feminine behavior. He is dreadfully accustomed to women who manufacture chaos to frantically claw back his attention, but a woman who remains serenely detached and entirely comfortable with the prospect of his absence is utterly terrifying to the male ego. The phantom competition is essentially the lingering ghost of the high-value life you lead. It is the silent, constant reminder that you are a magnificent prize he has not yet permanently secured. This quiet, devastating fear of loss ensures he remains constantly on his toes, forever striving to prove his worth in your deeply exclusive arena. Yet even when you have completely captivated his mind and successfully activated this primal competitive dread, there is one final essential rule of engagement you must strictly adhere to. To ensure this psychological hold never wanes and his obsession only deepens, you must master the exquisite, sometimes painful art of controlling the tempo, guaranteeing that every single interaction ends long before the magic has a chance to fade. We arrive at the final, arguably most exquisite weapon in your psychological arsenal, the masterful art of the graceful exit. There is a rather tragic habit among modern women to cling to a brilliant interaction until the energy completely fizzles out, desperately hoping to wring every last drop of validation from the moment. You must forcefully resist this urge and cultivate the iron discipline to always be the first one to draw the curtain. Whether it is a sparkling text exchange or a phenomenal third date, leaving whilst the atmosphere is still electric burns a permanent, intoxicating memory into his mind. The male brain is utterly captivated by the unresolved, practically plagued by an insatiable primal need to finish what has been beautifully started. When you politely end a conversation at its absolute peak, you create a psychological cliffhanger that forces him to constantly replay the interaction in his head long after you have departed. He is left suspended in a state of heightened anticipation, feeling the acute, almost physical withdrawal of your sudden absence. It is this exact, calculated dose of mild deprivation that flips his switch from a passive observer into an active, desperate pursuer. Let us put this into rigorous practice. When the banter over text is flowing wonderfully and he's hanging onto your every word, do not wait for the conversation to inevitably dry up. Instead, send a charmingly abrupt, "This has been brilliant, but I must dash to meet a friend for dinner. Speak soon," and immediately return to your reality. Alternatively, at the end of a splendid date, rather than lingering awkwardly in his car hoping to extend the evening, give him a warm, brief kiss, thank him for the lovely time, and confidently stride to your front door without looking back. This slight, elegant detachment communicates absolute volumes without you ever having to utter a single demanding syllable. It tells him in no uncertain terms that whilst he finds his company delightfully entertaining, your own vibrant life is the main event and you are eager to return to it. It completely shatters the arrogant illusion that he is the sole director of the evening's timeline, reminding his ego that your time is a fiercely guarded, highly valuable commodity. A man will quite literally cross oceans for a woman who subtly reminds him that she does not desperately need him to stay. By consistently executing this graceful exit, you ensure that his final impression of you is always one of radiant, high-value energy, leaving him quite literally starving for your next interaction. You are no longer just another predictable woman he's casually getting to know. You have transformed into an incredibly addictive, beautifully unsolved mystery that he simply cannot put down. He will find himself staring at his phone, utterly compelled to bridge the elegant gap you so easily created, completely consumed by the urge to pull you back into his orbit. Before you step back into your beautifully sovereign life, I have a rather pressing question for you to consider. Which of these silent psychological shifts are you going to implement this very evening? Will it be reclaiming your unpredictability or finally mastering the exquisite art of the graceful exit? Confess down in the comments below. I do read every single one of them. If you are quite finished with the exhausting try-hard trap and are ready to truly master the intricate psychology of relationships, I highly suggest you hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications for Destiny's Decree. Do not let another moment of your precious peace be disturbed by a man who has not yet earned his place in it. Stay elegant, stay sovereign, and I shall see you in the next one.